into the topic of the basics of UI UX. So what is UI UX? And after that, we will jump into the different topics and the different laws and principles of psychology in UI UX. I think we have about 6 of them. So I'll go through all 6 of them. And then we'll touch a little bit about our service, Digital Factory, and we'll end the whole webinar with some feedback and some questions. Okay? Sounds great? All right. Okay, so just a bit of introduction. So hello, everybody. My name is Ellen. I'm the UX designer for Y Innovation. Here with me, we have my colleague, Laurent. He's the innovation lead in Y Innovation. So a bit about our goals for today. So the goal of this session is to achieve a basic understanding of UI and UX. And then we're gonna take a peek into some of the psychological principles behind them and how to apply them in real life situations. Okay, that's what we'll be covering today in this 1 hour. A little bit about where we are from. Y Innovation, me and Laurent. So Y Innovation is a consultancy. We are innovation and organizational change management experts. We're based in Singapore, Hong Kong, and China. So our services mostly revolve around 3 main aspects, which is business innovation, agile adoption, and human-centric design. But today we'll be looking a little bit about human-centric design. Okay, and this webinar is powered by Digital Factory. Digital Factory is our ideas accelerator arm of Y Innovation, but we'll talk a little more about that after the webinar. Okay. Right, so without further ado, let's jump into the topic. Okay, everybody ready? Okay, so let's start with UI and UX. I think this is quite a popular topic nowadays. So what is UI and UX? So UI stands for, UI stands for user interface. So UI is the place where interactions between humans and machines occur. So in other words, it's the screen, right, on the phone. So that's the UI. It is the look and feel, the presentation, the interactivity. While UX, on the other hand, is the user experience. It's the experience that a person has as they interact with the product. So it's more of the purpose of the product, the functionality, and the overall experience. So while user interface and user experience have their differences, they also have similarities. So what do they have in common? Both of them are user-centric, and both of them are essential for product success. So, because a lot of people actually ask me, Ellen, which one is actually more important, UI or UX? Well, there's a lot of debate around this, but to me personally, I feel that both of them are really, really essential. You can't really have one without the other. Well, you can, but you can't have an optimal, great product when you abandon one of them. Okay, so both of them are equally important. For example, let's take an example of a transport service like maybe Grab or Uber or Gojek. So if we are talking about the user interface of such services, we are talking about the look of the mobile app. So their design, what you see on the screen, the colors, the fonts, the buttons, the little animations. So it's beautiful, it's intuitive, and it's also easy to navigate and understand. So when you use the product, you know exactly which button to press and stuff like that, so you don't get frustrated, right? So that's a good user interface. And all of this is experience when you are doing it. But when we go to UX, it's more about the overall experience outside the platform, because the app is just a vessel to hold the service, right? So what about the service itself? For example, if Grab, it's a transport service, right? So when we talk about UX, we are talking about, for example, if there's a feature to view the live car, so you can see the little icon of the car, beep, beep, so they're coming, so you know exactly where they are, so you know when to go down. So you know, oh, he's very far away, I'm just gonna relax for a little bit. So that's a good experience for you. You know exactly what to do. And then another feature is you feel safe because you can share your ride and your driver details. So that's how it's designed. It's designed in a way that the transport service knows exactly who you are with. They know which vessel which car you are going into. So let's say if anything should happen, they know who to look for. So that gives you a sense of security. So it gives you a better user experience when you're using the product, right? And for another example is both the driver and the passenger, because we are looking at two users and customers here, right? Driver and passenger. They're mostly on time, both of them, because of the penalty and reward feature. So these are the things that encompasses user experience. And UI is more about the look and feel. Okay. Then I like to give this an example. So let's see an example of if you want to use UI and UX. So let's look at this mug over here. It's a very nice mug. It's super cute. If I see this mug, I'll probably buy it. So it's so cute. You know, there's a little fox here. The eyes, the ears are like poking out. So happy, I buy it. I bring it home. I make my cup of tea, pour the cup of tea. And then when I drink it, boom, it pierces me in the eyeballs. So you see the UI is cute, but the UX is not so, because I won't have a very good experience with it, right? I can't drink my tea, I'll have to use a straw. Then it's sort of like, doesn't give the UI justice, right? So on the other side, if we are talking about good UX and bad UI, okay, this might be subjective, but this is one example. Some of you might agree with me. So let's say this one, Crocs, right? For my friends who use Crocs, they really love it. They say, oh my God, it's great. It's soft. It's lightweight. It's comfortable. You know, it doesn't smell and stuff like that. And feature-wise, it's great, but it's quite notorious for being a fashion no-no. So sometimes they don't want to be caught with it. So sometimes they even resort to wearing it at home. So this is like the other way around. So these are examples of why you should consider both UI and UX, of course. Okay. Then coming into a bit about the roles. So for some of you who might be thinking, you know, what's the difference between a UI designer and a UX designer? And maybe some of you are looking to, you know, shift into the career. So should I go to UI or should I go to UX? So here are the main differences of the roles, right? So a UI role, again, you are looking at the look and feel. So you'll be working with branding, graphic development, user guide, storyline, customer analysis, design research, and you will be mostly one very important role that the UI designer has is making sure the responsiveness and the interactivity is on point. So you adapt to all the screen sizes. So you have one product, make sure it looks perfect in all the screen sizes. So that's one of their key responsibilities. The interactivity, animation, then they implement with the developers and they prototype. So that's more of the UI role. The UX role is more of the content and strategy. So the customer analysis, competitor analysis, product structure strategy. Then we also prototype and wireframe. We test it, we develop it, we plan it, and we do some analytics with it. So we coordinate with developers. So we track the goals and integration. So as you can see here, the UI role is more of like an artist role. So it's more to the, I think the left side of the brain. Can't remember this. So it uses both sides of the brain. UI is the creative side. UX is the more scientific and logical side. So UI UX designer has to really squeeze out both of the left and right side of the brain, right? Okay. And other than in artist and a scientist, to be a UI UX designer, you're also taking on additional roles, like you're a psychiatrist, you're a philosopher, you're also a detective. So what do these roles have in common? So, well, personally to me, UI UX centers around one key topic, and the topic is human behavior. So that is usually the key of UI UX, right? And at the end of the day, however high-tech your product is, or how great your idea is, you are designing for humans. So it is essential that you understand your users, you understand their behavior. And that's why today we'll be looking at the psychology and the human behavior aspect of product design. Okay, so let's jump into the key topics and the key principles now. Okay, number one, let's talk about mental models. So what are mental models? Mental models are assumptions that people have on how the world works or how something should work. Because usually people, when they see something, they already have expectations of how it should work, how it should naturally work, right? And it's usually based on their experiences, how they grew up, where they grew up, who they grew up with. So it's an accumulation of whatever happens to you in the past, your experiences, your surroundings, that all accumulates into what they say your mental models. And mental models are like the is the voice inside your head that you can't hear, but you will always listen to, that you will just naturally do it. Yeah? So why are mental models so important to consider when it comes to product design and UI UX? Let's look at one case study over here. So here there was there is a, I think it's Fiat Chrysler, if I'm not mistaken. So they came up with this new feature right here. It's called a rocker switch gear shift. So their concept of the gear shift is that, we're going to launch these series of cars. They're going to have a cool new looking gear shift. So how it works is that it's just like any other gear shift. You can choose your gear, right? You can go from park, reverse, neutral, drive. But what's different about the rocker switch is that every time you change your gear, you click either forwards or back, the gear shift will always return back into the middle. So you will go back into the middle. So it will always be in the middle position, no matter what gear you are in. So, it might look high tech, so it will slowly come back to the middle. It looks pretty cool. So, but then this product was actually a flop, because the designers, when they were designing this whole gear shift, they forgot to consider, or maybe they failed to consider the driver's mental model. Driver's mental model, okay, drivers do not only rely on visual indicators, because there are visual indicators. So whatever gear you are on, it will light up. If you're on park, the P will light up. And there's another indicator on the dashboard saying that you're on park. But that's not how driver's mental model works. Drivers do not only rely on visual indicators, they highly, highly rely on positional indicators. So unless you are new to driving, when I was new to driving, I would check, what gear am I on? Then I will check, double check, triple check, because I'm scared, right? But when I get used to it, it's muscle memory. I just touch it one time, click, click, click. I don't need to look at anything. I know what gear I'm in. So that's how drivers' mental models are. They rely on positional indicators. It's like in our DNA already. So without even looking at anything, the position of the gear shift tells you what gear you are on, whether you notice it or not. So they failed to think about it. So when they launch their car, so what happens is there's a lot of cases where they think they're on park, they're actually on drive, they leave the car and the car goes away without them, which is a disaster, right? I mean, they get into accidents, and then the car bangs into a wall or something. So people are unhappy about this, and they try to salvage it, if I'm not mistaken. So they say, okay, we'll put extra indicators here and there, but will that help? Not really, because as you can put so many visual indicators, but we can't help it that our mental model is already a positional indicator. So in the end, what happened? They recalled all units. I think that's 1 million plus units. They had no choice but to recall it because it's too dangerous for drivers. So this is one example why you should always consider your users' existing mental models and see what you can do with that in order to accommodate that. So another example in more of a digital context. This is one of our clients from a few weeks ago. So the app is, I won't talk too much in detail into it. The app is a credit card comparison app that will give you the best deals. So you register all your credit cards into the app. They will tell you which one to use and so forth for the best deals. So we were talking about the merchant flow, me and my team and my clients. So then I told them, so this is the usual sort of like what people are familiar and comfortable with when it comes to merchant flow. So they come into a store, let's say Starbucks. They sort of have a rough idea of what they want. And then they check if there's any offers. Oh, is there like a free Frappuccino or whatnot? And then they check if they have a lot of credit cards, which is one of our target market for this app. They will see, which credit card maybe should I use? Because, some credit cards have certain tie-ups with merchants, right? And then they line up and they order. Then the cashier tells them, oh, thank you, sir, ma'am, your total is such and such. They input the amount and they pay. They pay either through the app or whatnot, right? So this is the usual comfortable or existing mental model that our target markets have. Then they came to actually, we want to change it a little bit. I want to take the input amount, the thing right there, and we want to put it actually in front. We want to add an additional step in front, in the second or in the third step. Can we do that? Then I was like, yes, we can. But then I asked them, but why would you do that? Because I think this is disrupting the mental model a little bit. And they gave me a reason for it. It was a very good reason. So I can see why they wanted to do this. It's actually another very, very good feature. But of course, my team, we were still a bit, okay, we are not too sure about this because now you are disrupting the people's mental models. But you know what? Let's test it out. Because like I said, designers, they are like scientists, right? We have a hypothesis. What do? We test it out. Okay, I created a prototype. We have a few users. We get a few users, and we tested it out. And all of them, when they were using this, and I told them the scenario, right? Okay, you are in the shop. This is the app. You have a lot of credit cards. You want to buy something. What do you do? Then I just stepped back and observed. So okay, they did the whole thing, but when they came to the second or third and they saw the input amount, what happens? They were like, what's this? What happened? And then all of them asked me, like, what am I supposed to do now? All of them like, what is this? And then, of course, they completed everything. In the end, I told them the reason behind this. And they were like, oh. And they'll say, oh, actually, that's a really good idea. That's smart. I was like, yes, it is. This is my client's idea. I think it's brilliant. But then again, it doesn't change the fact that all of them are shocked here. And what's even more important is that this scenario, I think there's like a high chance that the situation you're in is quite I would call it a critical situation, because there's a high chance that you are in the queue already when you're doing this. So when you're in the queue waiting to order, you don't want to be disrupted. When you're disrupted, you'll be like, and then you got people waiting behind you, and then the barista is like, hello, what do you want? And then you're panicked, right? So that's not a good experience. So I might consider to slot it in if the situation or the flow is not something very critical or like very time constrained. It might work. But here in this situation, I don't think it will work. It might give the users a bad experience. They might feel foolish. And then in the end, they might not want to use your product again because it was a bad experience, right? So I told them, never mind. It's okay. We don't take it out. It's a great feature. We'll keep it in. But the solution is, let's not put it there, and let's keep the original flow. We'll put the input amount as a choice in the second or third step. So if you keep it as a choice, even if they're not comfortable, they're in a hurry, they're like, I don't know what this is, they can just choose to ignore it and take a look at it later again, so that when they are more free, more comfortable, they can revisit it again. And when they see if this gives them a lot of benefit, they might slowly remember to use it and learn a new mental model. And then when everybody's comfortable, and then we can change it, and then they'll be comfortable to use it. Okay, so that's one example right there. So what are the key takeaways of the mental models? So people base their actions on mental models. And it's always good to start with something familiar, because if it's something familiar, it's something that you don't need to teach people, they will naturally do it. But in innovation, you need to teach your users as well. I'm not saying that you always have to start with something familiar. There are times where you will want or you need to innovate. So for example, let's take Apple. When the iPhone came out, it crushed everybody's mental models, right? We have never seen this before. All our phones have so many keypads. Then suddenly you give me this. Then I was like, what's the keypad? Oh my God, I don't understand. So, but then it's okay, because what they did, they taught their users very well. They launched a whole campaign and they teach you how to do it. So they're like, okay, this is what you do. You do this, you click, 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 click. So they hold their users' hands and they guide them through. Without that, they might not be as successful as they are today, because someone else might swoop in, take the opportunity, and then teach their users, and then they'll be the iPhone to take out, maybe. Okay, so of course you can innovate. We love to innovate, but you need to make sure to teach your users well. And last but not least, we consider our user stage in their user journey. For example, like I said, the product of my client before, I might just put that feature in, like that extra step in, if it was not a merchant flow. If it's an app that you are just looking in your spare time, you don't really have a lot to do, then sure, we'll put it in, because they're not in a critical condition. I mean, they're not in a situation where they need to act fast, right? Then we can put it in. Then maybe it will work. Okay, so it depends. But one thing is for sure, you must always consider your user's mental model. Okay. Okay, next up, we'll be talking about cognitive load. So the cognitive load is the total amount of mental effort being used in a person's working memory. So it's like our brain CPU, like how much RAM that you have in your brain, right? In your computer, you can add the RAM, but in our brain, unfortunately, we can't. So usually people, they have a limited amount of RAM. Okay, so we need to know what are people's cognitive loads. So how strong can we process information? So there's three main types of cognitive loads. There's an intrinsic cognitive load. It's a difficulty of a task or a topic. We have the extraneous cognitive load. It's how the task or topic is presented. And we have germane cognitive load, which is the load used to construct and process schemas. It's when you need to remember something permanently. Okay. We don't need to touch very deeply into these. These are just a helicopter view. So what we need to remember about cognitive load are some ways to help people in their cognitive load. First one is to give short-term memory support. What do I mean by that? Let me give an example here. For example, if you're in an app or in a service, let's say you are looking to rent or buy a property or a car. It's something that you don't just see and you buy or you rent. You have to compare, right? So what I do is last time when I'm looking for a place, I will open so many tabs, open. Then I need to compare a lot. I need to compare the area. I need to compare the price. I need to look at the pictures. Then I need to revisit things that I've visited before. I looked at so many properties that sometimes I forget, did I look at this before or not? And then sometimes I, click on the same one. Then when I read, I was, oh yeah, I've seen this before. It's wasting my time. But the thing is, I think I was using Property Guru, but they gave me short-term memory support. If I looked at if I viewed a page before, there'll be a little ribbon in the listing saying that it's viewed. So even if I don't remember, because I do have short-term memory, but then they support me by saying that, oh, you viewed this before. So it gives me, it relieves my cognitive load. So then I say, okay, then I will skip that, then I will keep on scrolling. Okay, so that's how we give short-term memory support. So it will really help reduce the burden and the cognitive load. And then we can also eliminate potential unnecessary steps. One good example is maybe we don't notice it, but when you go to Google and you want to look for something and you open a new tab, so Control T, and then the search bar on top, your cursor is already there. It's already blinking, ready for you to type in your search. That is a design. So they design it to be automatically there. So it eliminates the step of you taking your mouse, going there and clicking, because it's unnecessary, right? You don't need to do that. So they eliminated it. So that helps too. So I don't need to what do I do now? Then I click there. So it's always good to eliminate potential unnecessary steps. Then next, avoid visual clutter. So in your design, it's best to keep it simple. Okay, so even though the visual clutter is supposed to be a background or supposed to be just a filler, when there's a lot of things happening in the background, it takes our mind energy to process it, even though we're not supposed to process it. So by minimizing the visual clutter, we will help them process the things that are important, which is your service itself and what's in the middle, right? And of course, you need to know your users' mental models. Okay, this is also very important. So these are the things that will really, really help in easing your users' cognitive load. Okay, next up, we have Hick's law. So this is the law by scientist W.E. Hick. Says that the time it takes for a person to make a decision is a result of the possible choices he or she has. In other words, the more choices you have, the longer it takes you to make a decision. Take an example. You're in a restaurant, and this is the menu. It's a vast array of menu, right? And they're asking, okay, ma'am, what would you like to order? And then my face will be like that. Like this guy right here, like, okay, let me process it one by one, and then I'll probably take a very long time to decide. Because even though I came in there, so, okay, I want pancakes, but then you give me so many options that I question my own options. Should I get it? Should I not? But I have so many things, right? And in a digital context, which is very, I relate to it very much. I'm guessing some of you too. When you come home, You want to watch a movie while you have your dinner, right? So I prepare my dinner, I sit in front of the TV, I open my Netflix, and there's so many things, so many options. Then I start scrolling. What should I watch? No, not this one. Maybe this one. I don't feel like this one. And then by the time I get a movie, my food is cold. It happens to me every time, right? Because of I have too many choices. But of course, Netflix is doing a good job in trying to help me with this, because the first time when Netflix came out, it's literally just like this. But of course, as they evolved, they put in features. So now they can, that's why they have the algorithms to see what you're watching, right? This is how they help you decide. So they will push your usual content, the ones that are related to it, in front, so that you see it. Oh, actually, I like this kind of thing. So you don't bother going through the others and you click it. So that's how they, help you choose. And I'm very sure they have future plans to help us with this as well, because this is one of their business model, right? They need to give me a lot of choices, but then they also need to help me to not have that overload of choices. So yeah, so this one is an example of it. So this is the hardest to choose from if you have a lot of things. Some of them, they put this into a scrollable window, so at least you don't see too much. So this is actually easier than this, but of course the easiest is if you limit the choices if possible. Okay. So okay, this does not only apply to a wide array of choices, it also applies to the complexity of the task. For example, if we have this, okay, everybody doesn't like to fill forms, right? Let's say you have a very complicated form to fill in, maybe even more complicated than this. You have to, the first time says, yeah, I need to fill in so many things, my name, blah, 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 blah. So what can we do? One easy way to sort of make this easier and a nicer experience for your users is we break them up into 3, right? So we first ask them their name and email, mobile number, home phone, blah, blah, blah. It's very fast to fill this in. Then click, okay, now we need your address, postal code, city, state, click, blah, blah, blah. So you will have all the things that you need, but it will take them much faster to fill in. And it will be nicer for them because they don't see the whole chunk in one go. Okay, so this is one technique that I actually use a lot. It's quite good. Okay, so next up, we have the Doherty threshold. So the Doherty threshold states that productivity soars when a computer and its users interact at a pace of less than 400 milliseconds that ensures that neither has to wait on another. So this is the law of the most productive speed, which is 400 milliseconds. It's very fast, right? But I mean, we all know that sometimes it's impossible to keep it at 400 milliseconds. Sometimes there's no choice because your system is a little bit more complex. You might need maybe 3 seconds, or 5 seconds, or 10 seconds. You have no choice. But what can we do to make sure that people are not, not distracted? They're not like, they don't get irritated when they're waiting. One popular way and one easy way is that we put animations, right? So when they're loading, you put an animation. So they'll be, oh, okay, that's nice. So even though they're waiting, they have something to watch. So it keeps them engaged. It also lets your user knows that their action was acknowledged. Because what happens when you click on something and nothing moves? So it's just, it might say it's loading, but that's it, doesn't move. So for me, I would think that's stuck. Oh my God, is my internet down? What's happening? Then I will start clicking on my mouse and I'll rage click and I'll click, what's happening? And then if it's still not, if something is still not happening, I might kill the app or I might restart my whole computer because I think that my computer is stuck. When in reality, it's just loading. I'm just impatient, but I don't know that, right? So it's very good to have some sort of animation to let the user know that it's okay. We are processing, it's working. Don't worry, it's just waiting. So there's a few ways of doing it. Of course, you can do like a animation. You can do some sort of a progress bar. That's also very popular. And a lot of video games do this too. So they combine the two. So they have a progress bar and they also have tips. So you can give them information. You can give them tips and tricks or stories, whatnot, while they're waiting, so that they don't mind waiting, right? And video games, I think they mastered this whole Doherty threshold because some of them actually even take it up a notch. not only do they animate the loading screen, they make it fully interactive. Okay, let me show you an example right here. Okay, you see my YouTube? Yes? Okay, so this is a game. This is the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So let me play you about 20 seconds, okay? Let's all watch it together.
Cal told me you were once a Jedi. What made you quit?
In a moment of weakness, I used the dark side of the Force. I'm not sure I'll do it again.
The dark side?
The side of the Force that feeds on hatred and fear. Tap into it. You risk losing yourself.
Night Sisters channel magic through ourselves. We do not let it consume us.
That sounds lovely.
I mean, I could show you how.
I appreciate it. But please understand, the idea of using the Force is dangerous.
Okay, so how this game works is that your character can travel from one planet to the other, right? And in between the planets, the game is actually loading. But I don't know about you, but for me, I don't even feel there's loading at all. So when he comes into this character right here, comes into the cockpit, and you see that warp right there, the game is actually loading. So they have narrative, number one. So they still have the conversation going on. They have narrative. And again, they take it up a notch. You can actually move your character while the game is loading. So the players who are using this, they probably don't even realize that the game is loading. That's how good some video games are to really maximize their threshold in this. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our topic here. So, some fun facts about Doherty threshold. We all know we have seen a lot of progress bars before, right? But loading progress bars, they don't need to be accurate. What they do is actually their main function is to create the illusion of progress and to make the waiting tolerable. That's why sometimes when the screen is loading, 75%, and boom, you are in the next page already. That's because it's actually an animation. It doesn't really calculate your where you are in your process of loading. So we put the filler there so that it gives you the illusion of progress, right? And to tell you that, okay, it's working. So of course you can make it accurate to your speed, but if not, you can just put the animation. It works the same, okay? So this is one tip. And I know everybody wants to, everything is to load fast and fast and faster and faster and faster. But there are certain situations you may actually want to add delay. What this does, sometimes it increases perceived value and it instills some trust. Okay, so there are some situations where you have to add delays. Well, there is one example, even though it's not to instill trust, there is one more video game, the Ghost of Tsushima. My colleague told me this, that they are so optimized, their loading is so fast that because while they load, they give you tips and tricks and hints of what you should do. But it's so fast that the players are like, okay, reading, oh my God, it's the next page already, and they didn't complain. So the developers, you know what, we need to slow it down. So they actually have to slow it down. So these are some fun facts about it. Okay, coming to point number 5, we have the von Restorff effect. This is a law by the scientist Hedwig von Restorff. It's also known as the isolation effect. So it states that when multiple homogeneous stimuli are presented, the stimulus that differs from the rest is more likely to be remembered. So we are more likely to notice and remember things that stick out like a sore thumb, something that is different from the others, right? It's kind of like, oh, spot the main character. And so you'll see this guy right here, you'll probably remember him. Everybody else, I don't think you will notice. I don't think you will remember. So that's how the von Restorff effect comes to play, right? So one example, so this is one of our landing pages for Y Academy. That's our training arm in Y Innovation. So what I did for this is like there are 3 choices, but I highlighted one choice over here. So your eyes will be directed here. And a lot of companies actually do this, especially for purchases. So they will highlight it and make it seem like it's the most obvious choice, because a lot of times it's also the most value for money or something like that. Okay, so they like to do it. For me, it's not really value for money, but this is because we have only a few seats left. That's why I highlighted that one, so that people are inclined to look at this one first and maybe, choose that one. So that's a very simple way of using the effect, right? Okay, so let me take you through a study conducted by these two scientists, Jeff and Jim. So what they did is they gathered a few people, I think maybe about 10 to 16 people, and then they gave the people choices. So let's say in round one, they will give the people the number one right here, the blue one. So they will give each and every person a choice of three, a set of three. And then they will ask, okay, which one do you prefer? Choose. So for here, they will choose, okay, are you done? And then they will take the next set out. They will give these three green buttons right here. And then they will ask again, okay, which one do you choose? After they choose, after they're all done, and then they give them another set of three. So it goes on and forth until 8 sets. That's how they did. And then after that, they consolidated which one do people choose. So as you can see here, they're trying to see if you apply the effect and you make one that stands out, will people go for it? They did, but only 50%. You see the green one, yes, they did choose that. For the third one, yeah, they did choose the middle one, and for the 7th and the 8th one, but not all. So okay, so they, sorry. And then after that, they gave them another test. Same thing, okay, I'm gonna give you 8 sets of 3, you choose which one you want. And then they change things up a bit. Like for example, remember the second one, they prefer the smaller one. So you know what, let's switch it up. Let's make the smaller one a duplicate, like similar to each other, but let's make the big one the sore thumb. Let's see what they do. And they still chose the smaller one. They don't really care about the big one. So they switched it up on the second experiment. So what did they find with this experiment, right? They found that isolation does not predict selection. You could isolate something. People might notice it. They will probably notice it first, but it doesn't mean that they were selected, right? So they remember it. Remembering is not preference. So we need to always remember this, and design elements may trump isolation. That's why they put the one that sticks out. They design it visually not so appealing, so they won't go for it if it's not appealing. Just because remember it doesn't mean that you will choose it. Okay, so these are the things that you guys should remember when we are trying to instill the effect here. Okay, so I think we are at our final law right here. Okay, number 6, we have the Zeigarnik effect. So scientist Bluma Zeigarnik, she stated that the tendency to experience intrusive thoughts about an objective that was once pursued and left incomplete, meaning that if something is incomplete, we will tend to remember it more. This is widely used and mostly used in movies and dramas. Can you all guess what I mean? So let's say you're watching something very exciting, right? Then blah, 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 then the main hero comes, then he falls down, and then to be continued. So this is how the effect plays in. But oh my God, because it's an unfinished task, it's like, you want to know what happens, but then nope, they give you a cliffhanger. So this is very, very widely used in movies and dramas. So after that, you can't sleep, you keep thinking about it, so you want to know, right? Because it's incomplete. It's just human nature. So a lot of products actually use this. Okay, LinkedIn makes use of this effect very well. So when you are setting up your profile in LinkedIn, there's actually a progress bar. And if you're not completed in it, it will actually give you a little notification. Hello, your profile setup is not complete. Would you like to complete it now? It's not forcing you, but it's just reminding you, you actually have something that's incomplete. And then it will motivate you more. You know what? Let me just go and complete it. And then there's a progress bar, which is even better. So LinkedIn makes quite a good use of this effect, in my opinion. So what are the key takeaways from this? So showing progress increases motivation. So if you show like, oh, you're 80% there, are you sure you don't want to just complete it? Oh, you know what? I'm almost at the finish line, might as well. And the closer you are to the finish line, the faster you run. It's the same thing, right? When I'm doing my workout, I keep on eyeing the timer. If it's 2 minutes, then I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so tired already. But then when it comes out to the final 5 seconds, I get this rush of adrenaline. And then all my power comes back because I'm so close to the finish line. Yeah, so it's also nature. And you want to instill these too because completing tasks sparks joy. So whatever it is, however small it is, that's why a lot of products like Food Panda or GrabFood, they gamify. So they have certain tasks. Oh, if you order fried chicken 2 times this week, good job, you got a badge. It's ordering fried chicken. It's not really an achievement, right? But to me, it feels good. Oh, look, I got a badge because I completed something. It gives you, even if it's small, it's a satisfaction. And if you give your users that, if you give them joy and you give them satisfaction, of course they will be, they will enjoy your product more. They'll have a good user experience, and they'll like your product more, right? So these are some of the things that we should remember. All right. So we have come to the end of our topic here.